Here are some morbid facts about D-Day. While his comrades were being shot all around him, Canadian piper Bill Millen was playing the bagpipes during the storming of Normandy. German snipers later said they didn't shoot him because they thought he had gone crazy and was not considered a threat. The son of President Teddy Roosevelt was the oldest man in the D-Day invasion at the age of 56. Despite arthritis and a heart condition, he stormed the beach with a cane and survived. 1 month later, he died of a heart attack and was posthumously awarded a Medal of Honor. The fighting on Normandy Beach was so intense that 4% of its sand is still made up of broken down shrapnel from D-Day. In Saving Private Ryan, the Omaha Beach scene was so realistic that many veterans left theaters during the opening scene, claiming that it was the most realistic depiction of combat they had ever watched. These are some morbid facts about Marilyn Monroe. In the famous first edition of Playboy, Hugh Hefner posted nude photos of Marilyn without her permission. He later purchased the crypt beside her even though they'd never met in life, and now he's buried next to her. Joe DiMaggio was so devastated when Marilyn died that he brought flowers to her grave 3 times a week for more than 30 years. He never remarried, and his final words were, "Now I'll finally get to see Marilyn." When she died of an overdose at the age of 36, Marilyn left most of her estate to her acting coach Lee Strasberg. When Strasberg died in 1982, his wife Anna, who had never known Monroe, inherited her estate. She later auctioned off all of Monroe's personal belongings for $14 million. In the 1950s, LA businessman Richard Poncher purchased the grave above Marilyn's. As a final wish, he asked his wife to bury him face down so that he could spend all of eternity on top of Marilyn Monroe. Morbid facts. If your skin ever starts turning yellow like the photo on the left, you should see a doctor as soon as possible. This man had a condition called jaundice, which can indicate serious problems with the liver. These photos were taken before and after the man received a liver transplant. Before the murder of Shinzo Abe, the most recent political assassination in Japan happened in 1960. Leader of the Socialist Party, Inajiro Asanuma, was attacked by a 17-year-old wielding a sword. The brutal murder was captured live on television and broadcasted to millions across Japan. A group of researchers in Africa once hid a speaker near a herd of elephants and played a recording of one of their herd members who had died. The dead elephant's family suddenly went wild calling for him, and his daughter cried out for days afterward. The researchers later vowed to never conduct such an inhumane experiment again. In 2010, Ozzy Osbourne had his genome sequenced to understand how it was possible for him to still be alive after abusing his body for so many years. Researchers found mutations related to addiction, metabolism, and Ozzy's Neanderthal ancestors. In fact, he carries several 100,000 genetic variants that have never been seen before by scientists. Meaning if he wasn't a literal mutant, he likely would have died decades ago. There have been at least 9 different studies on the DARE program, and all of them agree that it either does nothing or only worsens the problem. Gary Webb was an investigative journalist who was one of the first to report on the CIA's involvement in the cocaine trade. A few years later, in 2004, Gary was found dead in his home with 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Ever since they were little kids, twins June and Jennifer Gibbons refused to speak to anyone other than each other. By the time they turned 18, they'd committed multiple criminal offenses and were sent to a high-security mental hospital in 1981. Years prior, they made a long-standing agreement that if one of them ever died, the other must begin to speak and attempt to live a normal life. While at the mental hospital, they decided it was now necessary for one of them to die, and Jennifer agreed to make the sacrifice. In March of 1993, Jennifer was rushed to the hospital where she died of a sudden inflammation of the heart. There was no evidence of drugs or poisoning in her system. It was as if she'd just died out of nowhere. Afterwards, June said she was finally liberated from her sister and was eventually released from the asylum. She now talks to people and has lived a relatively normal life ever since. In 2013, 16-year-old Ethan Couch killed 4 people while drunk driving, but he initially wasn't sentenced to any jail time since his attorney argued that he suffered from affluenza, a mental illness caused by growing up with too much money. In ancient Sparta, only 2 groups of people could have their names inscribed on their tombstones: men who died in battle and women who died in childbirth. In 1994, Los Angeles police arrested a man dressed as the Grim Reaper carrying a scythe. He was reported by various nursing homes after staring through patients' windows while wearing the costume. In the year 2000, the charred remains of Mary Lou Morris were found in her burned-out car in Houston, Texas. Only 4 days later, the body of Mary McGinnis Morris was found in her burned-out car in Houston, Texas. Police believe that a hitman killed the wrong Mary Morris and tried to fix it. In 2001, Ashton Kutcher had a girlfriend who was murdered by a serial killer after being stabbed 35 times in her own home. Kutcher would end up testifying in the trial of the Hollywood Ripper, who would later confess to murdering at least 10 women over a 15-year span. Author of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, lost her virginity on top of her mother's grave. She also kept her dead husband's heart and carried it around for 30 years until her own death. According to the FBI, if you're murdered in the United States, there's only about a 40% chance that your killer will be found and punished. In 2009, a Russian man went to the doctor suspecting that there was something wrong with his lungs. Initially, doctors thought they were dealing with a tumor, but it ended up being something they'd never seen before. It turned out that years ago, the man accidentally inhaled the seed of a fir tree and it started growing inside of him. Alan Lee Davis was convicted of 3 counts of murder after killing a pregnant woman and her 2 daughters in 1982. When he was executed in 1999, it took 3 runs of the electric chair to kill him. Due to the botched execution, he remains the last person to be executed by electric chair in the state of Florida. This 1985 photo was taken on board Japanese Airlines Flight 123 just minutes before the plane crashed into a mountainside. There were 520 fatalities, including everyone shown in this photo. In 2017, Las Vegas police arrested Shane Schindler, the prime suspect in the sledgehammer murders of 2 homeless men. Police set up a sting in which they disguised a mannequin as a homeless man and left it on the street. This is a photo of Schindler bashing the mannequin with the sledgehammer, thus proving he was the killer. While filming for Rocky IV, Sylvester Stallone challenged Dolph Lundgren to try to knock him out for real. Lundgren hit him so hard that he was sent to the ICU for 9 days and was lucky to survive. The Cordoba fighting dog was a dog breed that became so aggressive that it was very difficult to breed them, since a pair would often fight to the death rather than mate. This eventually contributed to their extinction before the 20th century. This photo from 1960 shows segregationists harassing 6-year-old Ruby Bridges, the first black child to attend an all-white school. They portrayed her as a doll laying in a coffin to protest her attendance at the school. This was the last photo taken of Marie Joseph before she drowned in the swimming pool shown. Due to the cloudy water, her body wasn't found for 2 days, during which time people continued swimming in the pool, unaware that Marie's body was decomposing beneath them. In 2011, scientists conducted an experiment to find out what's inside the average human belly button. One individual who hadn't bathed in years hosted 2 species of bacteria that are typically only found in ice caps and thermal vents. In the year 2000, an orca whale killed a great white shark off the coast of California. According to satellite tags, the smell of the dead shark's carcass apparently caused all nearby great whites to suddenly vanish. One shark that was in the region immediately dove down 500 meters and swam straight to Hawaii without stopping. Stricken with polio in 1952, Paul Alexander has been living in an iron lung for 70 years. He may be the only person left in one, since modern technology has created far more practical methods for respiration. But if Paul leaves this machine for even a few minutes, he will stop breathing and almost certainly die. 6 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the sunken battleship USS West Virginia was finally salvaged from the ocean floor. On that ship, a calendar was found inside of an airtight room where 3 sailors had marked off 16 days until they died. In 2013, a French man on a business trip died of a heart attack while having sex with a stranger. A French court later ruled that it was a workplace accident and that his wife and family were entitled to compensation. Many say he did it for his family. In 1997, episode 38 of the Pokemon anime aired just 1 time before being pulled from TV forever. The episode featured a flashing strobe effect that sent nearly 700 children to the hospital due to dizziness, nausea, and seizures. The incident nearly single-handedly ruined the franchise, and the Pokemon Porygon was banned from ever appearing in an episode again. P.T. Barnum began his career as a showman after purchasing a blind slave woman named Joyce Heth. Barnum claimed she was over 160 years old and had been the nanny of George Washington. He exhibited her until her death in 1836 and even charged people 50 cents to watch her autopsy. Syrian archaeologist Khaled al-Assad dedicated his life to the excavation of the ancient city of Palmyra. In 2015, he was tortured and later beheaded by ISIS after refusing to give up the location of precious artifacts. This devastating photo was taken in India during the Madras famine of 1877. The man is fighting the urge to sleep so that he could protect his family against cannibals. People were so desperate for food that your own neighbor could snatch up your child to eat them at any given time. In 2010, Dave Grohl was admitted to the hospital due to an overdose. He apparently consumed too much caffeine from coffee and thought he was about to die after experiencing severe chest pains. Also in 2010, a homeless man named Hugo saved a woman from a knife attack in New York City. He was stabbed while trying to help but continued chasing the attacker before collapsing to his wounds. Security cams captured more than 20 people walking past and staring at him, but no one offered to help. He was found dead on the sidewalk more than an hour after the attack. This photo shows The Undertaker looking down at medical staff after chokeslamming Mick Foley through the roof of Hell in a Cell. The fall was completely unplanned and left Foley with multiple dislocations, bruised ribs, and internal bleeding. The Undertaker was certain he'd just killed the man, but Foley got up and even finished the match. The band Fleetwood Mac highly considered thanking their drug dealer in the credits of their most popular album, Rumors. They only decided against it after their dealer was murdered. In 2010, a commercial plane crash in Africa killed everyone on board except for one passenger, who was left with an insane story to tell his rescuers. Apparently, a man smuggled a crocodile on board, which managed to escape shortly before landing. This made everyone panic and run to one side of the plane at one time, causing it to flip and eventually crash. Queen Elizabeth had two first cousins named Nerissa and Catherine Lyon who were severely disabled. Nerissa was publicly pronounced dead in 1940, while her sister Catherine was said to have died in 1961. But it was later revealed that they were actually tucked away in a mental asylum without any visits from the royal family until their actual deaths in 1986 and 2014. The US military buys a prank fart spray called Liquid Ass to train and prepare medics for the stench of the battlefield. This is a 1969 photo of Roman Polanski kneeling next to the door where the word pig is written in his wife Sharon Tate's blood. While Polanski was working on a film in Europe, Tate was stabbed 16 times by members of the Manson family when she was 8.5 months pregnant. Polanski has said that the murders changed him forever and that not being there is his greatest life regret. Secret Spaces. Hidden behind Mount Rushmore is a secret vault containing important information about the United States and its history. The room is not accessible to the public and is instead meant to serve as a record for people who come across the monument thousands of years from now. Hidden Beach is a feature of Mexico's Marietta Islands that looks like something straight out of a storybook. The beach was accidentally discovered in the early 1900s when the Mexican military conducted artillery tests in the area. North Korea's Pyramid of Pyongyang is a 105-story triangle skyscraper that was supposed to open in 1989. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, North Korea was never able to complete the project due to financial crisis. More than 30 years later, the building still remains completely abandoned today. Here are some morbid facts about Richard Ramirez. Like many other serial killers, Richard's childhood was far from pleasant. His father often physically abused him and would sometimes make him spend the night tied to a cross in a graveyard as a form of punishment. And when Richard was just 13, his cousin fatally shot his wife right in front of him. Ramirez was obsessed with satanic themes and symbols and would draw pentagrams on his victims' bodies. He would even force some of his victims to pray to Satan in their final moments instead of to God. In one of his interviews, Ramirez said, "When I die, I want to be buried with sunglasses on and my hands behind my head, so that when I deteriorate, I'll be the chillest skeleton in the graveyard." In 1996, a fan of Ramirez married him in prison after it was already proven he'd murdered 13 adults. But she broke up with him 12 years later when DNA evidence showed that he also killed a 9-year-old girl. Morbidly wholesome facts. When Eminem relapsed in 2008, he called Elton John for advice on how to handle the superstar lifestyle. Elton ended up calling him every day for the next 18 months and became a significant part of his recovery. When disabled man Alan Parton was hit by a car, his service dog Endel immediately dragged him into the recovery position. The dog then pushed his cell phone into his hand, put a blanket over him, and ran to a nearby hospital and barked until someone helped. The man ended up surviving with only minor injuries. Harriet Tubman suffered a traumatic brain injury as a child, which often caused her to slip into sleep-like states. During these sleeps, she would have vivid dreams, which she interpreted as messages from God. They would inspire her to devote her life to freeing Southern slaves through the Underground Railroad. Badasses of history. If it wasn't for this man, it's possible that none of us would be alive today. In 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis between the US and the Soviet Union, the captain of a Soviet submarine thought they were being shot at by US naval ships and wanted to fire a nuclear torpedo in response. But in order for this to happen, 3 officers on board the submarine had to agree unanimously to fire the nuke. The first 2 men had given their clearance, but Chief of Staff Vasily Arkhipov refused to authorize the launch. The men began arguing, but Arkhipov was a highly respected war hero known for his courage from a previous event. He ultimately convinced the captain to resurface and await new orders from Moscow. Thanks to him, a nuclear war was prevented from breaking out and humans were not made extinct. During a World War II battle with the Soviets, Finnish soldier Imo Koivunen got separated from his unit with no food, water, or weapons. Other than his ski gear and clothing, all he had was the entire methamphetamine supply for his squad of 30 men. Although he'd never tried them before, the soldier decided to take one for some energy, but he accidentally consumed the entire bottle. Over the next few days, Imo skied over 250 miles, survived the blast of a landmine, and grabbed a bird out of the air before eating it raw. When he was finally found and brought to a hospital, the 26-year-old weighed 95 pounds and had a heart rate of 200 beats per minute. Imo became the first documented case of a soldier overdosing on meth during combat, but he survived and lived to 71. Insane records! Soviet cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev set the world record for time traveling after spending 803 days in orbit around the Earth. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, this means Sergei effectively traveled 0.02 seconds forward in time. The oldest known operating bar in the world is Sean's Bar in Ireland. Archaeological records have found that the bar has been serving people since 900 AD, well over 1,000 years ago. Former President of Liberia Charles King holds the world record for the most fraudulent election in history. He won the 1927 election with 234,000 votes in a country with 15,000 voters. In 1964, 17-year-old Randy Gardner set the world record for the longest time without sleep after staying awake for 11 straight days. The Guinness Book of World Records refuses to validate any attempt to break this since it's so dangerous to human health. In 1997, tree hugger Julia Hill started living in a 1,500-year-old California redwood tree to prevent loggers from cutting it down. She ended up staying there for a total of 738 days, and the tree still remains standing today. The longest-running car is a 1966 Volvo with more than 3 million miles on it. That's enough mileage to make 7 round trips to the moon. The world record time for eating 3 72-ounce steaks is held by a 120-pound woman who scarfed them down in 20 minutes. The world's longest manned flight was set in 1959 when Bob Tim and John Cook stayed airborne for 64 straight days. The Cessna plane was refueled over 128 times by a truck chasing it from below. The longest-lasting battery powers a bell at Oxford University that's been continuously ringing since 1840. Nobody knows what the battery is made of and doesn't want to risk destroying it to find out. In the 1990s, a Tennessee man built the world's largest treehouse after claiming that God told him to. The structure had 5 stories, 80 rooms, and took the man 12 years to complete. But in 2019, the entire treehouse burned down in less than 15 minutes under unknown circumstances. In 2013, a Virginia college kid nearly died after drinking an entire quart of soy sauce on a dare. He now holds the world record for the highest blood sodium level ever recorded without brain damage. The 6 Sick Sheik's 6 Sheep Sick is listed by the Guinness Book of World Records as the hardest tongue twister in the world. In 1986, an Indian man set a world record by spending 72 straight hours in a cage filled with 72 of the world's most venomous snakes. He was seeking to spread awareness that snakes don't bite unless provoked. Rarest things in the world. This extremely rare illusion is an example of a Fata Morgana. It's a mirage that causes the object to appear distorted due to bending rays of light. It can happen to any large distant object, including boats, buildings, and islands. It's also believed that this illusion created the myth of the Flying Dutchman. In 2012, French beekeepers couldn't solve the mystery of the blue and green colored honey in their beehives. After months of investigating, it was discovered that the bees were visiting a local factory that produces M&Ms. The Botched people of Southeast Asia are often considered sea nomads. They have no homes, money, or nationalities, and they spend 60% of their life underwater. They can go spearfishing at depths greater than 200 feet without any scuba gear and have even developed much larger spleens than the average human to help them survive underwater. In 2001, a lion, tiger, and bear cub were all rescued from a drug dealer's basement in Atlanta. Usually as animals get older, they grow apart and become aggressive towards other species. But these three remained close and even lived in the same habitat for over 15 years. There's a tribe in India that's learned how to train the roots of fig trees to grow natural suspension bridges. These bridges can span over 100 feet and last up to 600 years. In 1932, Dr. Eric Salomon faked a broken arm so that he could sneak a camera in his cast to photograph the Supreme Court. It's one of only 2 existing photos of the U.S. Supreme Court in session. In the 1930s, a flute player had a pet lyrebird that mimicked his music. Eventually, he released the bird into the wild, but fragments of his music were passed down by generations of lyrebirds. Some of his music is even still present in their songs today. In 2013, a Finnish photographer captured the extraordinary friendship between a female gray wolf and a male brown bear. They shared their food and spent several nights together over a 10-day span before parting ways. Anonychia is the absence of one or more nails on the fingers or toes. In extremely rare cases like this one, the patient might be missing every single one of their nails. This bull was born without the protein myostatin, allowing for unrestricted muscle growth. 50 light years from Earth, there's a dwarf star named Lucy that's made almost completely out of diamonds. It's about the same mass as the sun and weighs an estimated 10 billion trillion carats. Photographer Jocelyn Anderson captured this once-in-a-lifetime shot of a blackbird catching a ride on an osprey's stick. On November 26, 2012, something happened for the first and only time in the history of New York City. There was not one single report of a violent crime. In 2016, a baby girl named Lindley was born twice. At 23 weeks, a Nigerian surgeon removed her from the womb to cut a tumor from her spine. He then put her back in the womb, and 12 weeks later, Lindley was born healthy. Only discovered in 1985, Rainbow Lattice Sunstone is an extremely rare igneous rock. Known for its unique lattice pattern, it can only be found in the remote part of an Australian desert. In 2015, a Murtha tiger was given a goat to eat, but miraculously became best friends with him instead. The extremely rare Texas star fungus can only be found in 2 locations throughout the world, Texas and Japan. Now this is a thick, juicy ribeye. In 1978, Soviet geologists found a family of 6 surviving in the middle of the Siberian wilderness. They'd been living in isolation for more than 40 years and were completely unaware of World War II. Insane coincidences! In the only novel that Edgar Allan Poe ever wrote, 4 crewmen get lost at sea and end up eating the cabin boy named Richard Parker. In real life, 46 years later, an English yacht sank and the remaining 4 crewmen resorted to eating the cabin boy to survive. That boy's name was Richard Parker. A Bosnian couple began cheating on each other when they both started talking to another person online. When both groups decided to meet in person, the couple realized they'd been cheating on each other with each other. A family photo under the northern lights became a 1-in-a-million shot when they also captured a shooting star in the background. Ancient ruler Mithridates was so paranoid of being poisoned that he routinely drank toxins throughout his life to build up his immunity. When he was finally captured by the Romans, he tried to kill himself with poison but failed because he was completely immune. Secret spaces. Huacachina is a small village built around a desert oasis in southwestern Peru. The lake formed naturally from underground aquifers, and many believe its water has therapeutic properties. It only has a population of about 100 people, but thousands of tourists visit each year. In the early 1900s, the city of Cincinnati built a 2-mile-long subway system that was never used and lies completely abandoned to this day. The Lonely Castle in Saudi Arabia is a massive tomb that was cut out of a boulder about 2,000 years ago. The structure was never fully completed, but it stands as an architectural marvel of ancient times. Cosquer Cave in France is a prehistoric cave that can only be reached through an entrance underwater. Only discovered in 1990, the cave has over 200 drawn figures which date back as far as 27,000 years ago.